Hi, I'm Gary, Biker's PhD. Your base gaskets are leaking, okay? I've had a lot of calls on this. I did some videos on the lower end and how with honing the cylinders and everything, and I guess this has raised quite a bit of questions because I've got quite a bit of calls with guys that have a leaky base gasket. So what is a leaky base gasket? You hear about it. So let's just start with the basics here. You have your head. This is your cylinder head, okay? This is your cylinder, and then underneath your cylinder, there's a gasket. All right, your cylinder goes on your engine cases. Okay, so and I'll bring the camera over here. We'll shine a light on here. But your base gasket. So here's your head, here's your cylinder, and then underneath your cylinder is that base gasket. Okay, and there'll be oil all over the engine. And whew, the light's bright. Love this flashlight, man. It's a LUX-PRO. Got it cheap. I'll leave a link if you guys are interested in that thing. But I'm hard on flashlights. That's an awesome one, but about blind now. But anyway, so why does the base gasket leak? All right, and what's its job? Okay, so here's a cylinder. You got your head. All right, the oil pumps up through these push rod tubes. All right, so it comes up through the push rod tubes, through the rocker arms, and then it pours oil, dumps oil to help cool and lubricate the valves and the guides and everything. All right, and then there's just a hole in this cylinder head, and it just drains back through this hole in the cylinder head. It goes down, the head's leaning, so the gravity gets the oil down, and it comes through where the dowel pin is, okay? So the head's on the dowel pin, sits on the cylinder on the dowel pin, and there's a hole all the way down through the dowel pin, all right? And it runs, so the oil just gravity feeds, and it runs down through the dowel pin, okay? And so there's no oil pressure going through this cylinder whatsoever. It's all basically the oil that's made it to the top of the engine, and it's just running down by gravity. Now it also can run down through the oil gathers in here too, where your push rod tubes are, because the actual oil pressure is coming up through the push rods themselves, okay, and feeding the rocker arms. All right, so the oil that's in here, it can run down these push rod tubes, or it can run down the heads sit on here like this. All right, and this is your rear head. Push rod tubes are coming up, and there's actually a hole here. The oil just runs over the top and runs down there, so it's gravity fed. So why would the base gasket be leaking when there's no real oil pressure? Okay, because guys, you'll take it into their shop, they'll take it into a shop, and let's replace these gaskets, and in a short time it's right back to leaking again. Okay, and there's no real reason for it to be leaking. I've run drag bikes with no gasket at all on the bottom, and we don't have them leak. Okay, so why is it leaking, and how do we fix this? Okay, changing the gasket is not fixing the problem. You've changed the gasket because it's leaking, but you didn't fix the problem. It's kind of like having a thorn in your hand, and you go into the doctor, you put some antibiotic on it and a Band-Aid on it. It gets better for a while, but it comes right back, okay, because you didn't fix the problem. So you can change all the gaskets you want, but you really didn't fix the problem. So the cylinder, part of the problem is because the cylinder is out of round. I don't know if you guys can see that in there. When this head is torqued, and I've talked about this in some other videos, when we torque the head on there, and I've got some better pictures I've taken of this, and I'll repost those. But when the head bolts go through this, there's a stud that comes up, and the bolts go through the head. And when you torque this down, it distorts it. You're squishing this down on the engine cases, and so this thing's, it's got spots. You can see it. You'll see it in the pictures when I post them. It'll rub. It'll have a space where it never touched, and then it'll rub. So the cylinder's kind of round, like I said, like a stop sign. All right, and so it builds up the cylinder. When the piston has the explosion, all this pressure is going by the piston, and it's building up pressure in the lower end in the crankcase where it shouldn't be. All right, you don't want pressure in the crankcase. That's lost. That's a lost push. When the explosion goes off to push the piston, the explosion goes off and the pressure goes past the piston. You're losing horsepower for one. You're losing, your performance, your mileage, everything's bad. Okay, even though it doesn't smoke oil, because the oil rings, and that's a whole other story. You've got 3 rings on your engine. You got a top ring, a second ring, and you have an oil ring. And the oil ring is just a scraper. It scrapes. Everybody gets me, well, how could that be? I'm not burning oil. Well, no, you can do this without burning oil. The oil ring scrapes the cylinder and scrapes all the oil off. So the oil's not coming up. It's the pressure's going by this direction, going down into the case, and you're building pressure inside the case, all right? And it can cause all kinds of other things. You let it go and you keep replacing the gaskets. I've seen it where it shears the key. And the pistons are kind of jarring as they're going down because there's so much pressure building up in the lower end of the motor. All right, so how do we fix that problem? All right, well, we'll go over here and I'll show you how to fix it. Okay, so how do you fix your lower end from leaking, from the base gas leaking? And it's because of the pressure that's in the lower end. So what you have to do is you bore these out, hone these out. The final hone is the most important, is with torque plates, all right? And so I'm going to show you what the torque plates are, kind of exactly how they work. There is a lot of different torque plates on the market. I've tried a lot of different torque plates. I don't even know how many I've tried. All kinds of different torque plates. I'm not going to get into the names of them. The only torque plate on the market that I could find that was actually aluminum are these BHJ torque plates. And I'm not sponsored by BHJ. I'm not getting a dime for this. They're the most expensive torque plates, I will tell you this, that you can buy. And they're the only ones that are aluminum. And what do you want a torque plate to do? You want a torque plate to represent what this cylinder, the conditions that this cylinder is in when the motor is completely bolted together, all right? So to represent that, now if you think about it, a Harley engine cases, they're two-piece cases, all right? So when you bolt something together, just like when you take it apart, I'm doing a video on the proper way to take these things apart, your cases can kind of do this number, all right? So this actually has a torque bolt in here, yield bolt. It's got a split in it to help kind of represent what is going on when you're torquing it down, okay? And it's got an aluminum top plate. Your head's made out of aluminum. And as far as, you know, the way I did this for many, many years, I've got 30 years in here doing this or more. And I've tried, like I said, I've bought every torque plate and I wasn't happy with it. I wouldn't want my job done with some of the other torque plates that I bought. I just, you know, it was trial and error type thing. So I'd buy a set, do a set, you know, tear it apart after it ran for a while and see what the cylinders look like. So the BHJ torque plates, in my opinion, are the best on the market. And the way I do this, so I use a base gasket. I put the base gasket on, all right, and then you put the cylinder on. I use an actual head gasket that I would sell and run. I put the head gasket on, and then I put the you put the top plate on. And then basically you bolt it. And I'd actually put a little oil on these before I would put these on and torque them down. And this is how your motor's put together. It has long torque to yield bolts. I replace these every so often. In fact, I got a new set coming right now. But they're torque to yield studs. And then you put the bolts on, you put oil on it. So when you put you're going to basically do, and then I torque them, all right? So I put the bolt, put a little oil on these, a little on the thread, and I would torque these down, all right? And I have found, I've tried a lot of different torque wrenches over the years. I've got a Snap-on. It's a digital torque wrench. They're super, super accurate. I get this tested all the time here locally. They've never had to adjust it. I've had this for many, many, many years. It's super, super accurate. I'm very, very happy with it. I might find, if I can find a link on Amazon or someplace, I'll post it on there. So you got a link, you can look at it just to check it out, whatever, if you want to get one. But these are awesome. And what you want to do, so then when you get your cylinders back from me, you're going to follow, and I give you directions and everything, what gaskets to use, and the torque process. Basically, you're going to follow the exact same torque sequence, the same thing I did, because you want to represent exactly what I do when you put your motor together, so that your cylinder, when it's bolted in your engine, it's true and round. And one of the other things I do, if I had a piston here, I would mic the piston that's going in this cylinder. So you're basically doing two 1-cylinders instead of having a piston that's manufactured here and we just throw this together. You look at the number on the box or whatever. I actually take the piston out, I measure the piston, set up my dial bore gauge, and then I bore this out to that piston so the clearance is proper for that piston with this cylinder. So everything, and then I leave this all together just like this is, so that cylinder is true and round. And then I get your rings and I gap your rings. I put the rings on the piston so they're gapped. Everything is labeled for this cylinder and it's gapped and it's ready to go, other than washing it up and assembling it. So, but anyway, this is what would fix your leaky you're leaking your leaks and your base gasket leak. All right. And a lot of guys, they just want to change the gasket, and it's still building that pressure, which it shouldn't be, because we know there's only oil. It's only just gravity fed oil, and when the motor's hot, that oil's, even though it's 20W50 or whatever you're running, it's thin, it pours right down through there. There's the only reason why it would be leaking is because there's too much pressure in the lower end and then forcing it to leak out. So, there could be some other things, your crankcase ventilation isn't properly, but this is the problem. It always is the problem. And then I'm going to do another video probably correlating with this one, because an EVO motor, it's an awesome motor. You can really make them run good. There's some tricks in here to do to fix the combustion chambers and different things to, if you're getting it bored and honed, and you really want it to run good, you can really, really make it run good. A little cam, a little head work, do the bore and hone. It's not a lot of money. And these things really are just a blast to ride. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I appreciate everybody's support. Hit the like, subscribe, share these videos with your friends, and I really appreciate everybody's business, and hopefully I can get to answering more questions. I've been getting a lot of questions. This was just easy for me to do this video, and I hope I can get to doing a lot more for you guys. But anyway, God bless you. Thanks a million.